Jessica Taylor. She was a senior breakthrough officer for the Almanac of American Politics. And David Gura with a Cook Political Report. Why don't you bring her in on what she's publishing about Monday? I want to know where Jessica Taylor is Monday.
Well, Jessica, let's start there. It's great to speak with you. We can get Tom a copy of that almanac. We just have
we start work on it next week, actually, for the next edition. So I'm quickly turning around doing that. So, yeah.
Are you going to know by Monday who controls the House? Where are we in the counting of votes in those, 30 outstanding districts across this country?
Yeah, it's unclear if we'll know by Monday. I think that we're still waiting on some of those key California districts, but I think there's a very thinning path, rather, to get to 218 for Democrats. That's what's becoming clear.
Annie Carney of the Times out with a piece this morning about Marie Gluesenkamp-Perez of Washington State. She complaining to Annie just about how she felt she was ignored by the mainstream Democratic Party. She had complaints about where things were going. She felt she was ignored by the candidate herself at a Christmas party. The grievances range from kind of macro to micro. But I want to use that as kind of a pivot to ask you about how much what we've been talking about over these last few days about the Democratic Party broadly trickles down to these races for House seats. Are the complaints universal about the degree to which the Democratic Party has left voters behind? Or if we look at these races one by one, be they in Washington State or California or elsewhere, are there places where the kind of main messaging that the Democrats have worked?
Yeah. So just to update you, I am looking at our latest projections here at Cook that we are putting out this morning. And right now, Republicans, we have them winning so far 212. So they're just shy of 6 seats at the 218. And we think probably the ceiling they can get is a 5-seat gain, which would bring them to 226. But that's still up in the air. But to ask about the individual things, I think that Democrats that managed to win were ones that had strong individual brands. Not only Marie Gluesenkamp-Perez there in Washington, but Jared Golden in Maine looks like he's held on, even as Trump carried that congressional district. But then, other Democrats that we didn't think were perhaps as in danger got swamped by sort of the tide. I think they're in Pennsylvania, which I heard you all talking about before with Matt Cartwright and Susan Wild in Pennsylvania losing both of those seats. But then, when I'm looking at the Senate map, someone like Tammy Baldwin managed to win very narrowly. Alyssa Slotkin, they both, I think, were able to run stronger in rural areas, not win those, but to do better. And I think that's coming with knowing the areas and that they had a unique brand sort of separate from the Democratic Party enough where they were able to convince voters to trust to vote for them, even as they voted for Trump.
In the Washington Post, I believe this morning, there's a fabulous article that Mr. Trump has power. Everyone agrees with that, but maybe less power to drive the House and Senate. Where do you stand on that? I mean, I'm waiting for Charlie Cook to write one of his wonderful essays about this. Is it a landslide? Is it a power shift? Or do we overplay that right now?
Well, at least when I'm looking at the Senate, they have at least 53 seats right now, and I think that's probably where it's going to land. The AP is called Pennsylvania, so they flipped West Virginia, Ohio, and Montana, but those three were always the ones we expected were the most. So again, Republicans left seats on the table because for the first time, we've had multiple seats that split their tickets in the Trump era. With it, the races in Arizona and Nevada aren't called, but it looks like those are going to vote Democratic at the Senate level.
Right.
But heavily Republican at the presidential level. So this could have been much worse. That's my piece that I have out this morning in the table. And that's because Democrats were spending heavily. They managed to sort of ward off some of this. In Arizona, they had we hear candidates. So it could have been worse. And remember that much like I think this was sort of Democrats' worry if they only got to 52 or something, which they've got one more at least, it looks like, that Susan Collins and Lisa Murkowski of Maine could wield overwhelming influence as the moderates within the GOP. Right. How they go about that could matter. But, if Republicans have gained a few seats in the House that we saw what that 4-seat majority did last time. But, the last time Trump had a trifecta was when he came in 2017 and they weren't able to get everything passed. And it's just 2 years probably because we see typically that a president's party faces backlash in that regard. So, I think they're going to have to push through tax cuts and renewing those tax cuts and anything that they want to do in this 2 years. But again, they have a little bit bigger majority in the House, but it's not huge. And, again, if some of those Republicans in California are reelected wins, that they could be sitting in still very heavily Democratic areas. So they might not go along with the national party.
I'll get this out on Twitter and LinkedIn. Aaron Blake writing in the Washington Post, Trump's mandate mandate isn't as, quote, powerful, unquote, as he suggests. Here's why. David, one more to Jessica, please.
Jessica, I just want to ask you about that so-called blue wall and where it stands today. I was in Wisconsin before the election, spent some time with Senator Baldwin, and just kind of noted how she was very confident that she was a known quantity. Love how everyone called her Tammy. There was no pretense in how people addressed her on the campaign trail. But she felt like she was kind of wandering around a terrain that had changed markedly since the last time she ran and the time before that. Our colleague Romaine Bostick was in Michigan saying Michigan no longer a blue state, saying that unequivocally. How do you see that stretch of the Rust Belt? Has it changed permanently?
I mean, I'm not sure that we can call it the blue wall anymore when we look at sort of Trump's victories there. I think that Democrats took the wrong lessons away from 2022 when they ran better candidates and when there was abortion on the ballot. I was talking with a Michigan Democrat yesterday, and they said, listen, Gretchen Whitmer won that by 10, but she probably got at least a 4-point boost because of just the abortion referendum and how terrible of a candidate the Republican Tudor Dixon there was. So, again, you do need to run Democrats that have those brands. That's how Tammy Baldwin was able to survive. But I don't think that we can, I think there was a lot of talk going into this, like Michigan's not even on the table anymore. Look at Gretchen Whitmer's win. Look at that, Supreme Court race in Wisconsin and different things. Like these are moments in time. And when you have presidential turnout, it turns out differently than some of these special elections.
Right. Jessica, 15 seconds. When do I get the new Almanac of American Politics? How long does it take?
You can pre-order it.
The target date.
June?
So.
Okay, Jessica, thank you so much. Jessica Taylor with us, the Cook Political Report.